The point of my story is you don't have to be in a big market, to make big money.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
This is the Yield Coach Show, episode 37. Hey everybody, this is your coach Ian Brown. A few announcements. Yield Coach Capital has opened its doors to investors looking to multiply their money while working with yours truly and our varsity investment team. We recently closed our 170-acre Gainesville, Florida industrial tract, and our limited partner investors are on pace to make 2.5 times or more on their money. That opportunity is gone, but don't miss the next one. Be sure to join our investor list and never miss a deal again. You can join our investor list by the portal, which is in the show notes of this podcast. It's in our Instagram bio link, and you can also do it at yield-coach.com. If you join our investor list, we will get you the free gift, 107 questions to ask a deal sponsor, and a discount to our Employee to Entrepreneur video course, which is packed full of information and case studies to kickstart your investment success. Now is your time to take the field. I am your host, Ian Brown. Every episode, we bring you dynamic entrepreneurs, real estate investors, thought leaders, and inspirational guests ready to open up, share their story, the good, the bad, the ugly, so you can learn lessons, gain advantages, and accelerate your own success. I'm very excited about Mr. Jay Conner, our guest today. Jay has 20 years in real estate, and he's going to bring us a lot of wisdom today. He learned how to buy properties with creative financing, including subject to private money and lease options. He got through that market crash in 2008. I'm sure we can talk about that a little bit. Developed his own system for gathering millions of dollars for his real estate deals without using traditional banks. In just a few short months from using his systems, he raised over $2 million in private money. And he has the freedom to work less than 10 hours per week in his real estate investing business by leveraging the power of automation. I like all this. Jay, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ian, thank you so much for having me come on to talk about the subject that I'm most passionate about, that's had a biggest impact on my business, and that is private money for sure.
Awesome. Well, 20 years, we probably won't be able to touch on every facet of your 20-year experience. So we'll tease out some nuggets of wisdom. I do like to start a little bit, earlier in the journey. How'd you get into real estate and or lending? I know there's been evolution in your path, but take us back a little bit.
Sure. Well, I was actually raised in the housing industry. My dad, at one time in the late 1980s, had the largest retailing company of manufactured houses or mobile homes in the nation. And all the financing for that product, the consumer finance, went away. So I knew if I ever got out of mobile homes, I wanted to get into single family houses, because friends of ours made $30,000 on a flip, the first one they did back in 1993. And I was trying to make $3,000 on a single wide, for those of the audience that knows what a single wide mobile home trailer is. But anyway, we started in 2003. First year, I only did 3 houses because I just wanted to make sure I understood what I was doing. And those first 6 years, we relied on the local bank to fund our deals. That was from 2003 until January of 2009. And then that's when everything changed, thankfully, for the better. I just didn't know it was for the better while I was going through it.
Right. And when you were doing your single wide deals, were you acting, where were you making your money? Were you making it as selling them, financing them, or were you actually rehabbing single family
No, we had retail. Yeah, we had retail sales centers. Gotcha. I didn't get into rehabbing of anything until 2003 when we started flipping houses.
Awesome. And so that first year you flipped 3, which I actually think that's not a bad number. I think the first 7 years ago, so I've been in real estate 17 years, but 7 years ago, I decided to stick my neck out there and Maybe I watched too much HGTV, but I went out and flipped a house. And we made money. It worked out fine, but it took me every bit of a year. I had really like one buyer. Thank God he bought it. And I 1031'd into an apartment and never went back to single family. However, I think people underestimate funding them now has changed a little bit. And I know we're going to talk about funding. But I know when I did it, I didn't, 7 years ago, it didn't seem like there was like a plethora of options. I wasn't sure how to fund the rehab. So I ended up doing the rehab on like Home Depot, Lumber Liquidators, Lowe's credit cards. Not the way to do it. But I didn't know any better. And so it took a long time. I didn't know it had septic. So I had to put in a new septic field. Inspector missed some foundation issues, had to put in this like 16-foot metal beam to get the foundation right. But it's not all about my flip. My point is, you doing 3 in your first year without a big team, I presume, that actually sounds pretty ambitious.
Yeah, I had no team.
Army of one.
Me was the team. But anyway, we got a team today. I promise you. I mean, Ian, we live here in a really, really small area. Our total population that I focus and invest in houses is only 40,000 people.
Wow.
Now, that first year I did 3. Today we do 2 to 3 a month. Here, just in our local, we've rehabbed about 475 houses now to date. But here's the deal: even in this small market, when someone knows how to buy them right and how to find them and buy them at the discounted prices, my average profit right now per flip is $78,000. $78,000. That's with a median price of about $325,000 after repaired value. But the only way that works is for me to have all the cash available. I got 47 private lenders right now funding our deals, and those private lenders have anywhere from $25,000 to $750,000 each to fund our deals. We got about $8.5 million, and so we just churn the money, from all the different projects that are going on. But the point of my story is you don't have to be in a big market, to make big money.
I think that's a really good takeaway. I think a lot of people are in a small market and think they can't get started, or maybe they're in a big market, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, LA, Miami, even Tampa now in Florida. And so, you're like, well, I can't find a deal in my local big market. And here you are in a tertiary market, maybe sub-tertiary market, cleaning house. Those are really good margins. And I think any house flipper would be happy to do that, certainly at scale. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, being in a smaller market brings you a lot of advantages. I mean, you can dominate your market, right? I've been dominating this market, since 2003. Now, that doesn't mean there's not other real estate investors around, but it's not like being in some big city to where, you're competing with, 100 other real estate investors or wholesalers or whoever. You know what's funny? We don't even have a wholesaler in this market. We don't even have a wholesaler. And look, Ian, I've never wholesaled a house in my life because I ain't got nobody to wholesale it to.
That's funny. Yeah, you're the guy.
That's right.
You can't wholesale it to yourself. That's funny. Well, a lot of people talk about, just to say it super, super plainly, you got to have deals and money. And you're the private money authority. So I know we're gonna unpack that a little bit more. On the deal side, part of it's chicken or the egg. It doesn't do you a lot of good to have deals without ways to fund them or close them. But how are you going about dominating your market? I mean, now you have momentum and reputation, but when breaking into a new market for the audience, do you have any tips on getting your deal flow going? Some actionable items?
Absolutely. So you just brought up an interesting point, and I'll answer your question with some specifics as to how we actually have consistent deal flow coming in every day. But the chicken or the egg, which comes first, the deal or the money? Now, Ian, I'm getting ready to say something that I know you've heard 100 other people say, and I'm sorry, I think it's the most stupid advice I've ever heard in my life. And here's what I've heard. Get the deal under contract. The money will show up. The money follows the deals. You've heard it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I want to go, where is the money going to show up from? Is it just going to come out of the clouds or something, So there's always going to be deals. There's always going to be deals. So I say, get the money lined up first. Now I'm talking about single family houses. You're doing syndication. I just heard you talk in the intro about a large, cap fund that you were raising for a commercial deal. That's a different conversation. Yes, you got a large project there that you're raising money for that particular project. But in the world of single family houses, I say get the money lined up first. Get $250,000, get $500,000 from a private lender or a few private lenders that say, hey, I love your program. I love what you're offering, what you're paying. The traditional way to borrow money is, I'm talking about on a single family house. Mm-hmm. You go to the bank, you get on your hands and knees and you put your hand underneath your chin. You say, please fund my deal. Please fund my deal. Not in this world that I'm talking about. We're not asking for a mortgage. We're offering a mortgage. You know what's funny, Ian? I've never asked anybody for money. And they say, Jay, how do you have $8.5 million? How are you getting any deals funded? And you never ask anybody for money. The answer is very simple. I put on my teacher hat and I start teaching people what private money is, what self-directed IRAs are, how they can get tax deferred or tax-free income on their retirement funds by using a self-directed IRA company, et cetera. So I put on my teacher hat, and then now the money is chasing me instead of me chasing the money. Now let me answer your question. How do we have the deal flow coming in consistently? Well, here's how I dominate the market. Number one, pay-per-click. Google ads, pay-per-click. So I've got 3 different vendors, 3 different done-for-you services that run Google ads for me right here in my market. And look, it looks like I'm competing with myself, but I'm all 3 guys under 3 different names, right? So when somebody says, buy my house or sell my house fast, well, the top 3 that come up on the page, they're all me.
Love it.
Right. Oh. So Google ads, right? Now those Google ads, each lead cost me $150, but who cares? All I need is 7 leads to buy a house, right? So we got Google ad leads. Secondly, we have Facebook ads. I have 2 paid Facebook ads, not Facebook post, but paid sponsored Facebook ads. So I have 2 different kinds of Facebook ads running every day in my market. I've got a done for you service that I hire to do that for me. Now, Facebook ads, I get more of those, but those are not as qualified because, those ads are just showing up in the news feed. Somebody sees it and says, oh, well, let me see what they'll give me for my house. So I need 20 of those leads to buy a house, but the cost of those leads are only about $50 a piece for each of those leads. And then in addition to Google leads and Facebook ads, since 2004, the second year we started investing in single family houses, my wife, Carol Joy, and I put together our foreclosure system. And what's the foreclosure system? We track, there's 2 parts to it, the tracking and the marketing. We track every open foreclosure file physically at the courthouse from the time of the notice of default and all the way through the sale. And we have 8 cumulative letters, sequential letters, that gets over a 50% response rate, which if anybody knows anything about direct mail, that's stupid, crazy percentages. But the reason it's such a high percentage is because my message to the market is a perfect match. So we track every foreclosure, right? And I tell you, that whole process is about serving other people. I'm not out here looking to take advantage of anybody. I'm looking to bring win-win solutions. And in fact, when these people call up, they're in distress. One of the first things we ask them is, do you want to keep your house? Do you want to keep your property? And if they say yes, and we give them a tip or an idea as to how they can keep their house, there's a loan modification, deferment program, et cetera, and they're able to keep their house, guess what? There's nothing in that for me and my team. But you know what? It ain't about reaping. It's all about sowing. It's all about serving that other person first. And if I help enough other people, I'm not going to have to worry about me and my team. Unfortunately, most people cannot qualify, for the loan modification. And guess what? When they tell us they'll sell it to us for what they owe, we still put thousands of dollars of money in their pocket to help them back on their feet. For goodness sakes, If I'm on average $78,000 in profit, can I not help those people out?
Right.
So in addition to that, probates, pre-probates rather, we direct mail all pre-probates in our local market as well. We do other things. I see a new bandit sign pop up. We call them and say, hey, if you wholesale a deal and you want to get an assignment fee, I got cash burning a hole in my pocket. So we do other things, but those are the main things we do to have consistent deal flow coming in every day, every week.
Jay, I want to stop you for just a second. Thank you. That was actually a lot. And you went ahead and told us how you're prospecting, which is an area that some people keep under a bushel basket. And I think what's interesting is, and tell me if I'm wrong, I didn't have you on to like, coach me through marketing. However, it sounds like I don't do any social media marketing or pay-per-click. A lot of my commercial deals come through being in the same market for 17 years, and I'm a broker, attorney, and an appraiser. At the moment, I'm really just a full-time thought leader and investor, but I still keep all those licenses. So my network is a blend of valuation experts, real estate attorneys, and commercial brokers. So a lot of my stuff just comes through channels that never hit CoStar, LoopNet, Crexy, whatever, just off-market stuff. Or brokers like, I found a great deal. I'm not an investor. I don't want to just put it out in the market. Can we work on it together? So I'll get deals like that. But the way what I like about guys like you and kind of more of the residential model that I think the commercial guys a lot of times rely on humans to feed them deals. And I'm saying it very plainly for the audience. Whereas, and that's the way I, for the most part, am. I mean, I'll knock on a stranger's door, but if I'm not buying residential, there's not a lot of physical doors I'm knocking on. But with you, like the pay-per-click, the Facebook, the marketing, the probates, the foreclosures, and I think you're in a deed of trust state, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Yeah, so I'm in a judicial foreclosure state. And so there's pros and cons. That's not the point of this show. But, your foreclosure, for the audience, the foreclosure process in a deed of trust state is like a micro fraction of the time for a foreclosure in a judicial foreclosure state like Florida. I mean, Florida, we in the last cycle, which has now been a little while, but we had commercial foreclosures exceeding 3 years. So those owners don't necessarily feel distressed when they aren't displaced quickly. But anyways, on the marketing side, would it be fair to say if, as a small operation, if I wanted to pay I shouldn't say a lot, 150, 200, it's a fair amount of money for a click for the Google ads. If you have a small team that's not ready to field a lot of calls, but you want maybe more qualified leads, that might be a way to approach it. Versus if you start to run higher volume Facebook ads, like you said, it might be that 20-to-1 ratio, but you need to have somebody ready to field 20 inquiries. So if you're kind of like a skeleton crew, commercial syndicator investor type, sounds like maybe a pay-per-click might be a fit. I've always been a fan of very intentional direct marketing. Never tried more of like the broad-based marketing on like Facebook ads. So I just wanted to get your thought on that. If you're running lean and mean, maybe a pay-per-click at a high ticket amount.
Yeah. Well, you said something very, very important, and that is you want to have somebody on the ready to respond to when a prospect comes in and responds to, one of the ads on the internet. So for example, on pay-per-click, my services that I use, when someone gives their information that wants to sell their property and they hit submit, it immediately calls my assistant, calls the cell phone and sends a text and an email. When that call comes in, my assistant can hit 1 on her phone and it's calling that person immediately right now. So here's a marketing principle, Ian, that I'm sure you're very familiar with, and that is I call it the older, the colder, which means the more time that goes by from when a prospect raises their hand and says, I'm interested in hearing more about what you got, and until the time that somebody's on the phone with them, the less likely you'll ever do business. Because an hour or 2 hours from now, they don't even remember they hit submit on the laptop, right? So you want to get them on ASAP. The other piece of advice is don't invest money in Google ads, Facebook, and all that until not only you have someone that is ready to take those calls immediately, but in addition to that, they know how to take the call. I mean, I've seen people waste money on marketing because they're not prepared, they're not educated on that closing call, on that initial building rapport call kind of thing. And so, what's the best way to get good at doing anything is do a lot of it. So, people that I coach and work with, I tell them, I say, go on Craigslist and go on Zillow and call them for sale by owners that live in another state, and you're not going to even do business with them, and go screw up on them. Those are free leads, and practice negotiating, practice getting your property lead sheets filled out, etc. And then when you have done 100 of those calls, now you're ready to invest money on leads coming in.
That is just tremendous advice. And that is actually, there is a way to do that commercially as well. It's a little more filtering, a little more nuanced, but what Jay's talking about, I think practicing those scripts, and I wouldn't, unless you have a coach like Jay or some guidance, it is risky. I've done mailers before. I wasn't a huge volume, but what I did mailers in Jack's Beach, multifamily of a certain size, absentee owners. And I got some calls back, and I was like, I didn't really think about when the mailers were going to hit. And I was about to take a trip and it's just me and Sam, the show producer, in the office. And so I was like, so some of those older got colder. And by the time I got to them, they're like, well, I don't know why it took you so long to call me back. I just want to know what you can offer on my property. And so it was hard to build the rapport. They were out of the honeymoon phase. So I totally understand what you're saying, Jay.
Yeah. And when those Google ads come in and you hit one and it dials them right back, most of the time they answer the phone. Because, if you get a call from an unknown number, you're not going to answer the phone. But when somebody hits submit and within 20 seconds, their phone is ringing, they pick it up. They're available. They're sitting right there. They're either holding their phone in their hand or they're on their laptop, and they're available. So boom, most of those people answer. And I tell you what, they are astonished. They are amazed. I mean, talk about a wow first impression. I just submitted my information asking somebody to contact me, and you're calling me in 20 seconds. That's amazing.
All right. Well, in the sake of efficiency, we've talked about the prospecting side. It's a deals and money game, and you have an incredible machine. You shared a lot on the filling the pipeline deal side. How are we going to take these bad boys down? How are we going to fund them, Jay? What have you evolved to do in your investing career?
Well, I tell you, Ian, let me tell you how I got involved in private money and how it impacted our business more than anything else. Believe it or not, Ian, here in North Carolina, we still have these things called landlines and handsets with cords attached to them, if you can believe it. But anyway, I remember.
What's that? Did that come from a museum, Jay?
No, it still works.
Oh, it still works.
We actually still intercom each other here in the office. But anyway, I remember it like it was yesterday. I mentioned earlier here on the show from 2003 to January 2009, I relied on the local bank. That's all I knew to do. I'd never heard of hard money lending. I'd never heard of private money. I'd never heard of creative financing. I'd never heard of buying subject to the existing note and all that stuff. I just thought from my mobile home days, you had to go to the bank and, get your deal funded. So I had a line of credit there, and I had in January. So I've been doing business with this same bank for 6 years. Great history, great relationship. And I call up my banker. I had 2 houses under contract. Each of these houses represented over $100,000 in profit. And I called up my banker to tell him about the deals that were under contract and the funding that was required for the deals. And so I learned very quickly on that phone call, I didn't have any funding. I didn't have a line of credit anymore at the bank. And my first thought was, it'd been nice if somebody had picked up one of them handsets and called me and say, sorry, Jay, we got to close your line of credit. Well, I didn't know there was a global financial crisis going on until now I got a crisis.
Now it's a crisis. Yes.
Now it's a crisis, right? And so anyway, it's a pretty funny story as to how this came about, but I won't take the time to go into it. I'll just give the bottom line. So I learned in less than 2 weeks about private money, what it is, and I put my program together. Now, in this world of private money, we make the rules. Remember, we're not asking for a mortgage. We're offering a mortgage. So I put my program together. What interest rate am I going to pay these private lenders? 8%. And I still pay them the same thing after all this time since 2009. Wow. 8%, no points, no origination fee. And so I started teaching people, first of all, here in our local market, the people I go to church with, people in the Rotary Club, people in Business Networking International, my connections. I started teaching them my program. And look, here's a really, really important lesson. Really, really important lesson. Do not teach people about private money and how they can make high rates of return safely and securely. And in the same initial conversation, tell them about the deal you got under contract that you need funded. You already sound like you're begging and chasing the money, and you're not even trying to, right?
Yep.
I mean, I've never pitched a deal in my life. Now, I've never raised large syndication money either, but I've never pitched a single family house that needs funding. Here's how it works. I got the money lined up. I raised $2,150,000 in less than 90 days. And then once someone tells me I love the program, I mean, let's say they got retirement funds and they want to transfer those over to a self-directed IRA that I've told them about, to where they can loan money out from their retirement money. I mean, they're either loaning me money from investment capital or retirement funds. So they're all set up to go. Now, here's how I don't ask if they want to fund the deal. That's the most stupid question in the world. I could ask them anyway. So they've told me how much money they got. So let me do a quick little role play here. Let's say, Ian, that you're one of my private lenders and you've got $150,000 that you've told me that, you want to put to work. You're happy with the 8%. So I call you up on the phone, have a little chit chat, and I'll say, and here's the exact script. Here is the exact script. I say, Ian, I've got great news for you. I can now put your $150,000 to work for you. I have a house under contract in Newport. Notice I didn't say the physical address. You could care less. I got a house under contract here in Newport. The after repaired value is $200,000, and the funding required is $150,000. See, I don't borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value. The funding required is $150,000. Closing is next Wednesday, so you'll need to have your funds wired to my real estate attorney's trust account by next Tuesday. I'm going to have my attorney email you the wiring instructions. Now, that's the end of the conversation. You're not going to, I didn't ask you if you want to do the deal. Now you're going to think, well, I don't know. Do I want to do the deal? Maybe I don't want to do the deal. Should I do the deal? Of course you want to do the deal. I'm not bringing you a deal to fund that doesn't meet the criteria of the program that I've already taught you. You've been waiting for the phone call, and particularly if I introduced you to the self-directed IRA company that I recommend to all my private lenders. If you have moved your retirement funds or a portion of them over to the self-directed IRA company, you're not earning any money until you put that money to work, and you're looking to me to put it to work for you. That's why you moved it over there, right? You're sitting by the phone waiting. How soon can I, start making money on my money? Yeah. So again, the most important thing up front about private money is the mindset, right? You're not chasing, you're not begging, you're not selling, you're not persuading. You are offering and you're teaching and you're serving. And when you take that approach, I mean, just copy my private lending program, which I'll offer everybody here in a minute. Teach the people. And I've never asked them if after I teach them the program, well, do you want to sign up? I just teach them the program and shut up. Believe it or not, I know how to shut up. And so I shut up, and then they're saying to me, well, what do I do? I mean, what do I do? Write you a check? No, you don't write me a check. You just tell me how much you want me to put to work. I'll put your money to work for you as soon as possible. And then you wire funds to my real estate attorney for closing. You don't give me any money directly. But Ian, I love private money. No credit check, no appraisals. I always bring money home in the form of a big check when I buy, because I always borrow more than I need to purchase. That only works if I'm buying at a discount, right? If I'm not going to borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value, I buy these distressed properties all the time at 30, 40, and 50% of the after repaired value. So if I've got like a $50,000 rehab, if I've got like a $35,000 rehab, I'll bring home a $50,000 check I love my real estate attorney's check stub. It says excess cash to close. I love me some excess cash. So I don't bring in this world of private money. I don't take any of my own money to the closing table, and I bring home a big check when I buy. But here's the catch. These private lenders are counting on you to take care of them. There's a 5-letter word that starts with a capital T, and that is trust. Even though they get a deed of trust, I mean, I don't borrow any unsecured money. They're getting a deed of trust. In addition to the promissory note, they're named as the mortgagee on the insurance policy, so they're protected that way. They're named as an additional insured on the title policy. But these people are looking to you to protect them and take care of them.
Quick nuanced question that came to mind. So let's say you have that guy in your example. He's ready to direct 150 out of his IRA. Do you ever have a challenge sizing people's commitments to your deals? If you're doing secured transactions with mortgages, do you ever pool these investors? And if so, would you put them in like maybe an LLC together to then be the mortgagee on a deal? I know that's a little narrow, but like in my syndication world, a lot of times you're like sizing debts and sizing commitments. So how is it going to work in your private lending recorded mortgage world?
Yeah. Everything we do is what's called a one-off. Everything's a one-off instead of so I could raise money. I could pool the funds and have them investing in a fund, but everything is one-off. So it's been a juggling act since 2009, right? Most of the time, including today, I've got more money than I can put to work, right? Because I'm matching that money up with the collateral. Now I can I've got some private lenders that's only got $25,000 with me, some people in their 20s. And so I will put more than one private lender as long as so then we have total loan to value. Let's say that $200,000 after repaired value house that I just talked about, I could have a private lender in first position at $100,000. I could have a second private lender in second position at $50,000. They each have their own promissory notes and their own deeds of trust.
Okay. So it makes total sense to me. So you'll just have subordinate mortgages.
Correct.
Okay. And do they all get the same rate? I know this is very nuanced. Do they all get the same rate of return, or do you change rates if there's subordinate financing?
Right. Quite frankly, they would all be happy at 8%.
Okay.
But again, I look after them. First position gets 8%. Any junior lien gets 10%.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
And typically the junior liens, not typically, always, the junior liens are going to be smaller amounts of money, like, $25, $30, maybe $50,000. And I don't mind paying 10% on smaller amounts of money, but I don't want to pay 10% on, $300,000. I'm happy at 8%. And they are too, quite frankly.
So in a perfect world, you have one investor, one property, and you just line it up and go. If you need to start stacking juniors at 10%, and then you will.
That's right.
Okay. You talk about automation. I feel like we got into that a lot early on the marketing side, and sounds like you have some automation in the private money side too. So are most of your private lenders, are they just regular old high net worth, or maybe not? They don't have to be accredited in your world, but what's like the profile of like a private lender for you?
It's funny. None of them walking around would you think was a private lender. They are regular folks, just like I say, just like us. They're regular folks. So I got nieces and nephews. I've got probably about 10 different people that we go to church with. I've got them in different states, right? Friends, across the nation. I've got a lot of them probably over half of them are retired. By the way, there's where you start attracting private money, is make your list, right? I got 5 steps to get in private money very, very quickly. And start with the people in your cell phone that are retired, right? There's a good chance they got retirement funds. And now you can teach them about, self-directed IRAs and if you're going to attract a lot of private money, you want to learn how self-directed IRAs work. And of course, I got you covered in that as well. But yeah, I mean, these are not like, okay, here's the answer to your question in a weird kind of way, Ian. These 47 private lenders that we have, Not one of them had ever heard of private money until I told them about it. And not one of them had ever heard about self-directed IRAs until I told them about it. So in my world, regular people looking for a higher rate of return that, is sick and tired of getting a little over 1% in a 12-month CD.
Oh, certainly. And even with today's increasingly high CD rates, you're still, double or nearly double outperforming a lot of them. I'm just thinking through just the differences in how we approach, we're working in different asset classes, and I'm probably pulling from a slightly different profile of investor. However, I did, just as an anecdote, I did a deal last year, and it was a 4-unit conversion from office to Airbnb down by the ocean. And that was a single high net worth individual privately funded deal with a mortgage, note and mortgage, first position, one lender. I funded rehab, he funded acquisition. And it was a bigger, it was $650. So, it was a pretty meaningful check. And we did a fixed rate interest only. We wrote it as a 5. So up to a 5. I think his preference is probably a 36-month. What's the typical deal cycle? And if you're using it for flipping houses, I kind of already have an idea, but can we talk about like your exit strategies and deal cycles and kind of what you like to do? I'm thinking you don't probably hold a lot of these. It sounds like it's mostly a full disposition, fee simple sale.
Yeah, well, I learned a lesson the hard way. In fact, most of my most important lessons I learned the hard way, which means I spent a lot of money that I didn't intend to. But anyway, so what I used to do is I'd acquire a property, a house, and rehab it, absolutely beautiful. And then I'd list it in the multiple listing service, and I would simultaneously market it for rent to own. Now, what's different about our rent to own program is we actually help the people get a mortgage. We force them into credit repair. So about 80% of those rent to owns cash out. But those other 20% that didn't cash out cost me money. I got tired of rehabbing a house more than once, right? Yeah. So here's my rule of thumb. When I pay all cash with private money, I'm going to cash out. I'm not going to leave the money buried in there, right? But if I buy a house on terms, such as with seller financing, or I buy subject to the existing note, well, I'm getting mortgage interest rates there that I'm taking over at, 3%, 3.5%, 4%, 4.5%. Well, I don't want to flip those. I buy it on terms and then I sell it on rent to own, right? And most of the time when I buy a house on terms, there's not a major rehab involved anyway, right? Much, much, much smaller. So that's my rule of thumb. Mm-hmm. Buy with cash, cash out, buy on terms, sell on terms. But the term from the private lender, if they're loaning me investment capital, then I set the length of the note for 2 years, right? So even if I'm flipping a house, there's no inventory, and I use 3 different general contractors, right, for that I do business with. Well, I may have a house sit there for 3 or 4 or 5 months before they could even start working on it, because I got so many projects going, right? So they'll start on it maybe 3 or 4 months down the road. And then if it's a major rehab, I got a rehab I'm finishing right now. Just the rehab's $200,000. That's very out of the ordinary. My average rehab now is about $50,000. So by the time they get to it, we get the rehab finished, we get it on the market. Hopefully I'm going to be in and out in less than a year, but I just don't want to have to go through the hassle of extending a note. So, with the private lender. So we just set it for 2 years. And then quite frankly, if they're loaning money from their retirement funds after they've switched it over to a self-directed IRA, I just set the note for 5 years. Now, one thing that we do, I do a lot of substitutions of collateral or loan modifications, because if somebody's loaning me like $25,000 or $30,000 for rehab money, well, I'm all the time having a rehab come up. Well, they don't want their money back. They never want their money back, right? They want to keep earning their money, right? Mm-hmm. And so on a large loan, I'll pay that off because it's got to be collateral. It doesn't have to be collateralized, but I'm not going to borrow money that is not backed by, that real estate. And so, but the smaller amount of money, $25,000, $30,000, if I've got another rehab coming up and there's plenty of equity in the property, and of course there always is, then instead of paying off that $30,000 small note, I'll keep their note open and earning them money, and we'll do a substitution of collateral, and we'll just recollateralize that note for them.
That makes perfect sense to me. Little nuanced question as well. Are you always, I assume these are interest-only format distributions monthly, or do some of them wait for an accrual and a pop at sale?
Yeah, I let the private lender decide. We've got some seniors that actually are relying on the monthly income to live off of. I got one private lender. We paid them $72,000 just last year in interest. So they are paid monthly. But I've got other private lenders that, I mean, they just want the return. They don't need the money to live off of. So we'll just let the interest accrue, make no payments. And then when we cash out in, 6 or 9 months or whatever, we'll pay all their principal back along with the accrued interest. And then if they're loaning us money from their retirement accounts, we're typically going to pay that either quarterly or semi-annually back to their self-directed IRA company, because the returns are not coming directly to them. It's going to their retirement, to the self-directed IRA company. So in answer to your question, it depends. It depends on the private lender's objectives and where they're loaning the money from.
Well, it's interesting you're willing to tailor that to the investor. It's not just a black letter thing. It's going to accrue or you're going to pay. And the money that I've taken, I've done it, but private money, not the syndication LP stuff, but I've done both, where it just accrued to the payoff. And then I've the one that I just mentioned with the private individual, he expected ACH, not just payments, ACH transfers every month. So yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna jump into I want you to talk about your program.
Sure.
And the sake of time. So tell us a little bit about it, where people can find it. I know you have a free resource for the audience.
Absolutely. So a great way to get started in private money, or if you're a seasoned real estate investor and you want to get in control of your funding, right, where you're making the rules. So I've written this private money guide, which is called 7 Reasons Why Private Money Will Skyrocket Your Real Estate Business and Help You Build Incredible Wealth. This will get you on the fast track to private money. It's free. You can download it. And here's the URL to download this private money guide. And that is www.jayconner, and I'm an ER, not an OR. So Jayconner, JAYConner.com/money guide. Again, that's Jayconner, JAYConner.com/money guide. Download it, get on the fast track to private money.
Wonderful. And I do encourage people to do that. There's a lot of different strategies and funding, from lease options and subject to and management contracts and private lending and syndication and all these different things. And I've talked about a lot of them off and on the show, and they're in my online course. But the stuff Jay's talking about is very powerful. I mean, to be able to find deals and know you can close them, because we spend so much time as professionals learning to underwrite and identify and market all the stuff we talked about in the first 10, 15 minutes. Well, you find these deals, it's worthless. It's nothing. It's less than worthless. You're in the hole now because you spent money on those clicks if you can't fund it. So you must have a strategy. If you're going to take the time to learn how to identify and underwrite and take down assets, you had better spend at least as much time to make sure you know how to fund it. And I tend to agree with Jay. I have a little bit of a deal first mindset, but I don't disagree with what you said, because I have seen deals nearly slip through my fingers, and I've seen friends lose deals because they couldn't fund them. And what ends up happening is the second guy makes all the money, or they have to chop themselves down to such a small interest it wasn't even. I've seen guys begging just to get like a finder's fee on a deal that they were once going to make 50 to 100 grand on, because they just couldn't fund it themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And another big benefit of private money is you can close quickly. I get offers accepted with lower offers than, say, a competing offer, because I can close in 7 days. 7 days. I'll buy the house and let them stay in it. Like I bought a house last month. I'm letting them stay in it for free till August. They didn't want to sell till August. Well, time kills deals. So we locked it up. I bought the house. They're living for rent free till August. I hope I don't have trouble getting them out.
Yeah, I don't know your landlord tenant laws in North Carolina, but all right. Well, this has been great. Any other resources you want to leave the audience with before I bring it home?
I know. I think that's good.
Wonderful.
jconnor.com/money guide. And of course, you can just go to jconnor.com and find other resources as well.
Awesome. You've been a really fun guest, and I love the accent. Yeah.
It's sort of hard to hide. That's for sure.
Yeah. I live in Florida, and there's like a little accent in North Florida, but nothing like you Carolina boys. I love it. All right, guys.
Thank you for having me on, Ian. Thank you so much.
Certainly. All right, everybody. This has been a great interview with Jay Connor. Share it with a friend if you enjoyed it. I think there's a lot of good takeaways. So I really encourage you to take that link, share it with a friend, give us a rate and review. It makes a huge difference for us on ability to generate more content. So don't be lazy on me. Give me that little rate and review. Write me up. If you're into socials, we're on Insta, Facebook, and YouTube. You can see this video on Spotify as well these days. Let's go ahead and call it a wrap. I'm your coach, Ian Brown, signing off and reminding everybody to lace up and leave it all on the field. Yield Coach out.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconnor.com/moneyguide. That's jconner.com/moneyguide. And download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconnor.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with